we're entrepreneurs. And what that means is like, we're not really worried about money because money will be made when we need to make it. We're more focused on that big picture of what we're trying to solve in this world, whatever that may be, as simple as just making yourself more money, or you want to go help other people, right?
Welcome to Seven Figure Entrepreneur Podcast, the #1 podcast for bringing you behind the scenes with real online earners. No fake gurus here. And today we have the man, the myth, the legend, Jimmy Kim. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, man. Glad to have you on.
Yeah, likewise. I've been watching this show for a while. Excited to always be on other podcasts to kind of share all sorts of cool things out there.
Yeah, look at the studios he's in right now. He's got a serious
right now.
I am. Yeah, you got a soundproof room. You got the green screen behind you. You got dual mics going on. I also see like a really crazy like SLR behind you too. Like
there's also all these like 4Ks behind me everywhere.
Oh, you're ready.
Got one over here. I don't know. There's also we're in my studio here where we shoot our podcast and our YouTube show and all the content we do. So yeah, we've got all sorts of cool, crazy stuff. There's about 90 lights in here as well too.
Oh, nice, man.
Jimmy's also a model, if anyone hadn't heard that already.
Male model there too. Yeah, absolutely.
You can give a little shout out to your podcast if you want.
Sure. Yeah. We just launched it not too long ago, but it's called the Marketing Automation Hustle. And it's branded by us, but we try to be agnostic in that we're trying to really truly educate the world around email marketing and marketing automation. So long story short, we're dropping lots of great knowledge bombs. And then also we've got a lot of great guests on it from more like e-commerce brands that are coming on, not like the business, not the actual like tech partners, but like businesses coming on talking about what they're doing in email marketing or marketing automation, segmentation, all that good stuff that we'll probably talk about today, but being able to really get people dived into it, yet keeping it like fun, like you guys do it, not like this like robotic like machine that's sitting behind there talking and reading off a script, but it's very much dynamic and so forth.
Yes.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, we as you know, our podcast is very freestyle right here. Very freestyle. Yeah. So yeah, all right. Well, let's dig into it, man, because like I met you a few times in Vegas, but besides that, I don't know shit about you. Tyler knows you better than I do.
I've actually been using Jimmy's company for years now. So me and him know each other pretty well. And he's like one of my go-to guys a lot of time on email for questions, actually.
That's dope. So let's like rewind, man. And like, how did you get into this space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll kind of give you a little bit of background story about me a little bit before we get into even that, and kind of leads to it. But long story short, the big thing about what we're doing here and how we got here was really derives from where my journey has been as far as a person and entrepreneur as well. So I started my life in the car business. That was my first big like personal like career, I say. So I started washing cars when I was 16, and by the time I was 25, I was a general manager of Saturn stores. And then from there, it just kind of evolved. And I think it was about 2008 when the whole General Motors crash happened, and I had to make some tough decisions. I actually decided that I wanted to learn more about the internet world because that's always been my true desire of understanding it. And so my first career out of the car business was actually working with Onik, who's a internet entrepreneur and, make money online and e-commerce and a little bit of everything, right? More focused on.
He's an OG. Like he's been.
He's been around since like 2004 or something like that. So my agreement with him when we first got together was very simple. I said, you teach me everything you can teach me when it comes to more of the sales and marketing side of the internet world. And I'll teach you how to operate your business better and be able to streamline a lot of your operational side of things, because that's what I'm good at. And I know that I'm good at that. So that's what I wanted to kind of bring to the table. And that's what we did together. We did that for many years. And it led me to my first company of my own. And that was my first company where we first started off more as a content creator type world, doing affiliate stuff and promoting and creating courses. Eventually it became a software company once we started to seeing like the problems and how we could automate them. And we started making cool little things like a click tracking tool that we used to own, doodle animation, like a whiteboard doodle animation company, ebook creator. So we did all these like cool little things and we put it out there, and I eventually exited all that in 2017. I sold all that. And then I also owned an e-commerce store as well too. I owned a retail/e-commerce store in Las Vegas called New. It still exists to this day. We had a retail location, went fully online eventually, went into that company as an initial investor into that company, and then eventually bought into and came to an agreement that I would be a managing partner in the company. And we kind of grew that company for many years. We quadrupled the revenue in like 2 years, and like we started really taking off. All it was basically poured an operational role and marketing around it. And obviously marketing is such a big thing. So we took that off. And during that whole time, the biggest thing that we always kind of struggled, especially being a content creator, an e-commerce brand, software company, a little bit of everything, is we really saw a problem in the email marketing space where we could get a product like a MailChimp or Constant Contact or iContact, more of those legacy OG players. And we knew that we could get those guys, but they didn't have this like deeper set of automations and behavioral based data points that we wanted. And the only other things we could find were these high-end products like the Brontos and the Pardots and the Sales Throughs, like these really high-end products. And so we went off and said, you know what, we're going to solve this ourselves. And my partners, we all had our own little like specialties, right? Like I'm the operations sales guy, marketing guy. You know, one of my co-founders, Zach, is a deliverability and like a product guy. And then another one was Anik, who also had just a huge, massive influence. So we used all of us to kind of break this thing. And we created this thing in 2013 initially to really use it for our own businesses. That was all it was, about how to make more money for our own businesses. That's how SendLane started. And then eventually in 2015 became like, hey, let's put it out there and start making some money. And then eventually it's kind of grown, and we bootstrapped the whole thing for a couple years. And then just this past December, we closed our first round of venture fund onto the company as well too. So now we're VC backed. So that's kind of fun too. And we've got a lot of capital behind us. So it's been an interesting and fun ride, but that's how I'm here now. I exited everything else in 2017. So I was fortunate enough to have some great assets and be able to sell them and make good money in my pocket, and then let me get into startup mode, which means you don't make any money. And it means that you're going to be broke all the time if you don't have any money behind you, which is where the typical startup founder is. But fortunate for me, I didn't have that problem because I came with money and I have money in the bank. So it made it a lot easier for me to make that mental shift into it. So that's where we've been. And then we didn't really go all into SendLane until about 2017. And then over the last couple of years, we've grown tremendously just through the focus side of things, which is my number one thing that I'll always tell every entrepreneur, like focus on one thing, guys. Like that's really where you'll take off.
Can you give a breakdown of what SendLane is? Just for somebody who doesn't know?
Yeah, just at the highest level, we're email marketing company, and we do SMS too, but mostly email marketing for e-commerce and content creators. So that's where we find a focus, but we're really focused right now on e-commerce businesses. That's where we're kind of focusing and shifting our business next right now, and everything around a deeper data behavior. So if you look at a company like a MailChimp, we're like the next generation. So what we like to say is you graduate from a company like MailChimp and move to a company like ours before you go to a company like a Bronto or a Salesforce or a Pardot kind of situation. So we're like that mid-grade company that you get to before you move into the next step of the world.
That's awesome. And just to retract, like going through that whole story, I have so many questions. And the first thing I want to touch on is actually something you said in the beginning, because we have a lot of people come to us all the time and they're like, hey, can I work for you for free? Or can I, what can I do to have your time or something like that? And a lot of the time, like, I don't even freaking know. Like I'm not really hiring right now. And I don't know necessarily like, what I could use them for. I'm totally glad to help out, but obviously we have only so much. Your approach, you actually came with something valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came to the table with just a very deep experience in a different world, and I was able to kind of apply to their problem. I guess the problem was very simple. When I came in there, he was basically telling me like, I've got problems here, I've got debt here, I've got operational issues here, I've got all these people don't know how to do this. So I guess the biggest thing is my value add when I came in there was like, hey, I'm going to help you solve all these if in exchange that you could bring me that back. But, just to talk about what you just said, the biggest thing was I took a huge pay cut. Like I was making like 300 grand plus a year in the car business, running everything. And I took a salary cut to about like 90 grand a year to do it. I actually ended up selling my house. I moved into apartments. So I got committed to it. I mean, this is that painful side that people don't hear about on the Instagram stories or influence. Like you got to go through the pain and the grit in order to get up there. And it's a constant thing. Even now with my, with SendLane, itself in the startup environment, I'm going through pain. My savings is depleting really fast because I live a lifestyle I've accustomed to, and I enjoy my lifestyle. And for me, it's like, and I'm sure you guys can agree, we're entrepreneurs. And what that means is like, we're not really worried about money because money will be made when we need to make it. We're more focused on that big picture of what we're trying to solve in this world, whatever that may be, as simple as just making yourself more money, or you want to go help other people, right? So depending on what that is, that allows you to put yourself in that mental place as well too.
Totally. Yeah, that's actually a good point, man. The longer I've been an entrepreneur, the more I've been comfortable with like not necessarily always looking at the bank, because you're like, you can make it. You have the connections, the resources, the skill set to produce something of value that someone's going to be like, shit, I'll pay you for that all day long.
And there's not many industries where you can like be like, I need like a quick like hundy, you know, and just like quick 100 grand and just like, oh, okay, we got it. Like I'll make that in like a month, you know, it's not a big deal at all.
Yeah.
So what, so when you joined on,
you're gapping hard, homie.
Uh-oh. He's frozen.
Uh-oh. That Denver internet's not so hot.
Yeah.
I'll try again. So when you joined Onyx Business and started helping him, how much did his business change and how much growth did he see from the
Sure.
you brought?
Yeah, so he was doing about $2.5 million a year when I joined him in 2008, 2009. By the time I left, I think we had crossed like $11 million annually. Nice. So we were able to do that. The bigger thing was when I came in, he had a mountain of debt. He talks about this publicly, so it's not a big deal to talk about it. But it's like he had a mountain of debt behind him because he just had let operating expenses, team, everything just kind of go a little bit rampant because he was so focused on his current vision at that time. And he was about $1.6 million in debt. So, you know, knowing that, being bootstrapped, we knew the only way we were going to fix that was to generate a lot of revenue behind his business. So that's what we did. We took the next couple of years, about 3 years, and we basically generated tons of money to be able to pay off all those debts so that we can put the company into a profitable position so they can continue to grow. And they're still using a lot of the same things that I set up or did back in 2009, 10, 11 into 12, and that they're still using in their company now. And, you know, they're generating north of $20-25 million a year now. So they're still using those same principles and things that we kind of applied in structure. Obviously, they've evolved, gotten better on different things as the world is all done. But, you know, a lot of the same stuff that I'll be talking to him and I'll be like, hey, I set that up in 2010. He's like, yeah, we haven't changed anything. So it's always good to feel that what I inputted, I didn't leave it. Like the biggest thing that people have problems with, and I'm sure what you're kind of alluding to, is there's too many times where people come in saying that they're really good at something and then they leave. And there's actually a really funny anecdote, and even in our company we say is like, someone leaves, and if all you can find is like, let's just say is a marketing role, and all you find is fancy pens with like your writing on it, like that's all they really left and contributed to your business when they left, probably meant that exit was the right thing as well too, right? So it's always that weird little place that you kind of sit.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, man. So you worked with Onyx. What made you leave, and what did you do next?
Yeah, so we had an agreement up front. It was like a very clear agreement up front. I'm going to help you. You're going to teach me, and then I'm going to move on, and we're probably going to do something together, but it won't be in this company per se. So we had that agreement, and the agreement was all around the debt. Right. So that he had this big debt mountain of problems behind him. And I told him that when I help him solve that I would do it. And that's when I went off and right after it and became my own content creator, basically taking what Onyx does, where he was teaching PPC, product launching, all this stuff. And I saw a core thing of like my interest was email, and where I loved email, and like really even his company, like being able to write these emails, really taking down a path, a journey, and then be able to kind of create ROI behind it. It was just so exciting that you can send this email and you could turn ROI back real quick. And like, that was just so intriguing to me because it satisfies that inner like impulse side of yourself. Like as an entrepreneur, like quick results that happen. Obviously building a list for hundreds of thousands of people isn't easy, but like if you take the rest of that element out and if you know how to write copy and send it, and you know, there's a lot of things that come into best practices.
It's like a game.
Yeah, it's like a game, and it's like it eventually becomes like, you know, they always say it's like printing cash, right? That's what email does, but it doesn't happen because you just built an email list. It happens because you took an email list, nurtured it, and really created a trust bond between the company and of course the end user, and then been able to kind of ask them for the sale, right? So it's a cool little sales / marketing type role in email that comes into place.
I got to admit, man, I've never heard anyone make the word email more sexy before in my life, but you're totally right, dude. Seriously.
Well, we live, breathe, and love email here. So that's, we better make it sexy, you know?
And even when it comes to like, I bet a lot of e-commerce brands, I know the cost per acquisition up front is so high and like only getting higher. It's not getting cheaper. Facebook prices are growing every year. There's more and more demand on Facebook. And I'm just talking about Facebook. Obviously, Google, the rest is the same, especially Christmas season. But that's where email can really come in and cash in.
Yeah, not only the nurturing stage, but also that repeat buying cycle. That's what we preach and we try to teach a lot of people is like your ROI should not stop on the first purchase. It should stop after multiple purchases, and that should be the starting. So where traditionally email is the end, e-commerce, email is actually the beginning of their stage of life with your company, and being able to curate them with a personalized experience is really important as well too.
Totally. Could you actually touch on that a little bit? Because that's one thing we found as far as making emails very personalized.
Yeah.
Whether you even if you add like the date that day, or obviously all the name tokens, the state tokens, etc. Can you talk about clients that do that versus clients that don't?
Sure, absolutely. Well, there's two parts to it, right? So I'll break this down into two parts. The first is really talking about personalization and then talking about client success behind that. But all right, so personalization, we break into two segments. So the first personalization is exactly what you said, like what's your first name, what's your last name, what's all the data points that you're creating, right? But the second point of personalization for us that we really preach and we try to push a lot of our e-commerce brands to do is really about personalizing through behavior, about like what websites did they visit before they got that email, what are they actually doing on your website, and tying that journey between your website and your actual in your actual store together, so that people feel like you're actually giving them that personalized one-on-one type of interest or communications based around it. So if they viewed a certain product, or they viewed a certain product, or looked at the pricing page a certain amount of times, or they added a card, all these things are behaviors, right? So sending that message on that one-on-one basis becomes a personalized experience. So when you take those two pieces of personalization together and you tie them together, it becomes ultra or hyper personalized, right? Where people like, okay, this person obviously knows what I'm doing, knows my name, knows my information, knows what I want, and now it's time to make that purchase, right? So that's the core of what we consider personalization. We don't look at it as just about the name and like some data points, but really how that behavior is. And then from that, what it flows down to on success side of things is you see a dramatic uplift of people's revenue and ROI that they're generating when they're able to take those personalization points of like putting triggers in place to make sure that during behavioral actions that you as a company usually know more or less like what trigger points you need to know, like what they're buying, what they're upselling, and all that stuff in your e-commerce company, and being able to activate those trigger points as the data points in order to trigger your next communication to them, instead of just about newsletters and automated drips, right? Like we think further than that, and that's what personalization is in e-commerce.
That's awesome.
That's
Dude,
really
so you talked about the second part of personalization, which was looking at the sites they've been to before, what they're doing on your site. How the hell do you wrap that all into like some sort of email marketing program? That seems complicated.
It seems complicated, but it's really not as complicated. I mean, for us, it's just a simple tracking code that we're tracking across your sites and being able to kind of track that journey. And then inside of our product, it's all about segmentation, of being able to take that information and using real-time segmentation to like really drive that, to create these little segmented audiences, or based on the behavior that's happening real time between your store and your website, and being able to deliver it. So I'm looking at products looked at, or product purchased, or abandoned carts. So those are all triggers that are happening on the backside as well too. So there's two parts to it that kind of connect in together.
What about like the sites they visited beforehand? How do you wrap that in?
Well, we can't wrap in sites that they have visited that aren't owned by you, right? So you still got to own that site. Unfortunately, it's impossible to do that. I'm sure one day someone will solve that and they'll be magical, but
I'm sure some black hat guys figured that out.
I'm sure someone's already figured it out with some Google Analytics codes and all sorts of crazy stuff. But we don't have that part solved. It's only for your own site and your own leads, of course.
What as far as like e-commerce brands specifically, what do you suggest as some of the most important triggers that they should be looking at and firing based off?
Yeah, there's three most important triggers on any e-commerce stores. One, abandoned cart, making sure that, and of course there's sequences behind it that are really important. So it's not just about the trigger point, but even the cadence behind there. Of course, a welcome for newsletter or blog or whatever you might be doing on your content side, and then a customer welcome series as well too. So there's three touch points that you should always have in your business that you should be running. But then it's really like, how is that catered, right? So to me, it's like, that's the high level. And then what's the actual inside supposed to look like? So an abandoned cart for e-commerce, right? Like best practice, for example, is 4 hours after they left your cart, then 24 hours, and then 24 hours. And it's like a 6-day procedure, but it's not just a simple 6-day procedure of like, hey, you forgot something in your cart. It's literally forgot your cart, reminder, and then it's about brand, story, instructions, problem solution, coupon, and so forth. So your abandoned cart should not just be an abandoned cart. It should really be a nurturing series where, hey, after 2 emails, if they're not buying your product, they're probably not going to buy your product now. So how do you take that person and convince them that they want to buy a product? So it could be about the brand of what your story is, what your mission is, or it could be about how this use case of the product could solve to them, or an instruction piece, or it could be a coupon. Maybe they just need a 10% more off, right? So there's all sorts of things that come into play, and it's really important. Again, this goes back to the business, but really understanding how that customer journey is and being able to develop that perfect customer journey. But same thing with like a welcome series. Welcome series doesn't mean just welcome them to your website and thank you, but it's like that same idea, like how do you get them to become this evangelist for your company? How do you get them to talk about it? Do you ask for referrals? Do you ask rewards? Do you introduce them to a, you know, like a rewards program on your platform? Maybe you show them social stuff like your reviews of your product, or you're recommending products that are naturally that flow. Like, you know, if someone buys an iPhone case on your store, for example, you know, like for example, I have this little pop socket thing I got for free somewhere, but I would have bought this if someone showed me this as an upsell, right? Totally. So knowing and how to cater that product purchase cycle with each person is really important. That's how you maximize your LTV. And that's at the lowest level. Our best customers have like 365 days a lot of times of like real workflows built out around anything that they're doing. So you could be like, when person adds cart, you know, send an abandoned cart. And then you could be like, you know, if person visits this product and has purchased this product, then send this communication. If they purchase this product and that product, send this communication. Really granular to create that true experience. But the beauty of it is, once you do it, it takes a lot of work up front to do it. But once you do it, it becomes this autopilot side of things where you're not worried about nurturing. Now you can worry about top of the funnel and nurturing the bottom of the funnel, the customer support side of things. You don't have to worry about that middle where you're creating that repeat buying cycle on autopilot. So that's what we like to see with our customers.
Quick question. So there's a lot of copy involved with this, and it sounds like you're good at copy. Do you have any suggestions on where people could learn a little bit on how to create email copy for stuff like this?
So copy is one of those things I'm sure you guys already know. You either got it or you don't. Like that's it's not something I recommend people, even business owners, to really go out and learn. I think it's good to learn. Hire somebody. Definitely hire someone some experience and acclimation to it. But it takes that good knowledge behind it. But there isn't anywhere that I would say. I know like Anik, for example, has a great course on copywriting, and I put my people through it as well too here. He's got a great one, and I think it's free actually, so people can get it. But that's a great course overall that you can do. But really, unfortunately, because copy could be spread over. So we were searching a copywriter, right? And we found out really quickly, there's different buckets of copywriters, D2C, B2C, B2B, you know, all these different segments of people out there, and they all kind of act differently as far as like who those people are and what kind of copy they have. So it's one of those weird, meticulous places, which is why e-commerce companies generally use agencies, because an agency has an e-commerce content writer or copywriter in-house already. So we found most performance companies, like e-commerce companies and brands that are growing, they don't really have much of an in-house marketing team. They usually lean on a agency. They'll usually have like a director of e-commerce and then an agency behind it.
Interesting.
Gotcha. Okay.
Huh.
Yeah.
What doesn't SendLane have some sort of copybook or subject line book?
Oh yeah, we have a cool little book that we give to our customers. It's like 878 of the best subject lines. It's and 100 of the worst. So we kind of took about 10 billion of our last 10 billion emails and basically broke them down and said, hey, what is the best volume? And then we solidified and checked them against like making sure there's an error reporting or anything weird or funky going on. But that's just one of the content pieces. We've been driving as a company really heavy in content marketing. So that was just another one of our content plays that we've done, because we found in our business that that's literally the way you win, is through thought leadership more than anything else.
Totally. I love how you're educating your clients too.
Yeah, we generally try to educate our client because we think it's important, because if they're educated, they'll do better. When they're better, they'll be evangelists, and hopefully that brings us to a referral, which is why most of our clients, you know, our hiring clients that we bring in generally bring us a handful of referrals each and every one. So it's that
I could see
evangelism cycle of life cycle that you have to build into your brand.
That's amazing.
Totally. That's super cool, man.
Yeah.
We've actually been looking on for the Facebook side of things. We've recently been looking into copywriters, and man, it's not an easy task going through people out there. And first we tried to do like the save money route, where it was, let's see what we can hire overseas.
Yep.
And that very quickly became obvious that wasn't going to work. And so now we're talking to a couple copywriters locally. But at the end of the day, man, it is tough to pick one and find one. Any tips?
I mean, there's a reason why a company like Agora pays so much. I mean, they pay their copywriters like a couple $100,000 a year, like $200,000-$300,000 a year. So I don't think $1 billion company does that just because they want to pay the best. They do it because that's what it takes to get the right talent.
To get to $1 billion too. Totally makes
exactly.
sense.
Yeah, you definitely got to hire them, and they're expensive. Copywriters are super expensive. I'm a copywriter by nature, so it helps, but I know how much I've charged my clients and how much how much I typically charge them to do copy for them, regardless of what that vertical it is. And it's not a typical affordable place to be for most entrepreneurs, especially if they're just starting off.
No, I think it'll probably be the most expensive hire we've ever done within our Facebook side.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Actually, a copywriter is probably more expensive than a media buyer. Actually, it's not surprising.
For sure. Yeah.
And media buyer too, like that's something for the most part you can train up. Like we recently brought on, it's our camera guy for our podcast is now also a media buyer, and he's killing it. He's doing well.
Yeah.
But
That's not the first time I've heard that, by the way. I know another guy, Onyx camera guy, eventually became a media buyer too, believe it or not. So
dude, it actually makes sense because then they can make awesome like Facebook video ads.
Well, you know what he said he learned is because he sat there and watched the entrepreneur or Onyx basically sitting there and talking all the time to him and like basically hearing it over and over in his headset while he's editing. He basically picked up copy indirectly without even him knowing.
Jeez.
Think about it, right? If all they're hearing is your voice and your word and your message and your mission all the time, constantly, he's going to know how to write the copy around what you're actually trying to say.
Love to be that guy and hate to be that guy at the same time.
Yeah, it's a tough shoes, man.
Probably hear Onyx's voice in his sleep.
Yeah, and they produce a lot of content, so for sure.
No doubt. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Going back to one thing you mentioned earlier, you were talking about SMS a little bit. That's kind of a newer thing for you guys, right?
Yeah, SMS is new. We just have early traction trying to get some feedback and stuff like that, and we're kind of learning where we need to be with it. But SMS is one of those weird places because there's two things. There's the laws, right? So there's TCPA compliance starting to happen right now, and people are getting slammed right now. So it scares us. Slammed. I say slammed because I know 2 companies that have gotten 7-figure lawsuits against him from the government. And you know what happens when you play
from the government?
Yes.
Wow, because I know there's all those other like what I don't even know how to like refer to them right now, but people who get an SMS, they just basically want to sue the shit out of anyone so they can get paid.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they're basically setting examples left and right. And then I'm sure there'll be a version of can spam that comes out for SMS that's going to come out eventually in the next 2 years. So that's been happening. So that's kept us a little bit cautious about going into bulk or like, a lot of the two-way stuff. But we found that the biggest thing is just the experience of what SMS really means to a person, especially if you're looking at like e-commerce brand. It's so much more personal to a person. And yes, that's great that you get 80-90% to open the email, open the text. That's all great and dandy. But the reality is do customers or the consumer really want that type of experience? In my opinion, most people feel that it's bothersome or it feels disruptive, and disruption doesn't lead to sales. Disruption leads to anger. Disruption doesn't lead to something unless you've got something amazing that you're offering, which most of these people who are out there doing the kind of the bad stuff out there with SMS is not. They're not doing that. They're out there just slinging some kind of service or something.
Disruption leads to lawsuits.
Yeah, exactly. And right now, disruption is leading to lawsuits, and it's been a big thing. I know a company locally that it is going through a 7-figure government lawsuit right now, and I can't talk more about that, but I just know why, and it was very simple. It's just they don't have all the right things in place. Like there's things like you can only text them once every 24 hours. You must have clear opt-out rules. The messaging, if it's a marketing message versus transactional message, there's different laws and rules around it. All these things have to be understood if you're doing SMS. I think that's something that a lot of people don't know, and there's going to be a lot of pain out there to make sure that it is known eventually. So
how does someone like Cart Guru get away with doing like follow-ups like that?
I don't know. I mean, we don't know. The company I know is also a large text messaging platform as well too, and they just got slammed. So if they're doing it and they don't think they have a problem, well, they should probably check themselves, or maybe they got the right legal to make sure they're protected. Yeah. I don't know the answer. I'm not the expert in SMS either myself. Yeah. So I'm just being like, as much as I know and information that we've learned through our lawyers and all that stuff. It's
funny that something like so simple, like getting a text message, could be so hazardous to getting sued.
Something like $10,000 a text or something like that you can get in trouble for.
Wow.
It's atrocious. Yeah. I actually, I talked to an SMS lawyer yesterday and asking just about, because like transactionally, like kind of like what you said, transactional text versus marketing text are 2 completely different places. Like marketing falls under TCPA, transactional doesn't.
Correct.
But the shift, because the way Carts Guru claims they get through it is because they consider abandonment cart transactional. The lawyer I talked to, he's like, that's a fucking just a
anytime
a
you're asking for money, it's not transactional anymore.
That's what he was saying. Because there was one case, Twilio versus Wick or something, and Twilio actually won. But their message was like, you forgot something in your cart. But if you say you forgot something in your cart, get 10% off now, you've just crossed the fucking line.
Correct.
Interesting. So that's transactional.
Yeah, transactional is that one-on-one through a true experience because of a behavior they did or a message that they requested or desired in order to do it. That's where abandoned cart is that gray area, because abandoned carts, they didn't technically opt into your list. They didn't technically say yes 100%, but you're messaging them. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So it's a little fishy with it, but yeah, I mean, I think in the next 2 years we'll really see what comes out of it. I think it's
right.
A lot of companies are going to die during it, I think, and I think it's going to be what happens everywhere, right?
Such a fine line.
It is. Well, that's because it's
Crazy.
new. It's like email back in like 2000 right now. Like it's very new, and you know, it's not unnatural right now that you go out there and upload a list of a million text message numbers and blast them away. And yeah, you'll probably get kicked off or whatever, but you can do that right now pretty cleanly right now on a lot of platforms.
The good old days.
Yeah, the good old days. Same thing with email too. It's just like the good old days of email, but it's tightening up right now.
Did you ever do spam email back in the day?
I don't think I ever did spam. I did like, you know, I guess there was gray per se, like in earlier days, you know, which did all like little bit of the tactics like snowshoe spamming, for example, like where you're changing your from name constantly, or changing your email address constantly to try to land an inbox. All that stuff used to work back then, and it wasn't defined as a spam rule. But in like, I think 2013, they defined that as called snowshoe spamming, which is unacceptable by Spam Cop, which means that your ISP can block you because of the IP because of what you're doing. So like all those little things that people are doing even to this day, which I think is hilarious, but that stuff is going to get you in a lot of trouble because that stuff becomes legally a problem at that point, and not just gray, and that you're going to get banned off the ESP. We take those things very seriously. Spam Cop comes to us. They come to us. They come to our delivery center. They come to our data centers, and they basically flood our stuff, and we have to fight and prove to them without undeniable thing that the customer was removed, that it was legitimate, and that the customer may or may not even be on the platform anymore. So those are all like big things that are coming in, and that's the same thing, that whole CCA California compliance that's coming out as well too. Yeah. It's the same kind of like procedure, which is kind of, it's not like GDPR, but it's very similar to GDPR in a lot of ways. They just want better clarity about where those emails are, and that's the fight to fight spam per se at the same time. So I didn't do it, but I did definitely do some things when I learned early off in 2010, 11, but it wasn't actually called something bad back then. It's actually now called something bad.
So, interesting. Yeah. Tyler, isn't that what we did though? Like back in the day?
Yeah. We could buy like big chunks of IP space and just let it rip.
Yeah. SBC, baby.
Yeah. Everybody has done some kind of different version of that, but it's a learning experience, I guess, and it's evolution. That's what text messaging is going through right now. It's evolution right now.
Yeah, for sure. It is funny too, seeing a lot of guys in SMS, like guys who were doing well with it a year ago. Right now, they're not doing so well because SMS is also adapting very quickly. Like these telecom companies are obviously not stupid.
Oh yeah.
And have more technology than like anyone, and can pay people to sit there all day and watch it. So it's been pretty interesting to see it evolve. I think though, like doing SMS right, kind of like what you're saying, is a very effective tool. And even actually, one thing that happened to me was I was looking at different ESPs because that's what I do, email. So I'm always looking. And I looked at Oracle's platform. And I signed up and I had a call come in. I didn't pick up the phone call, but then I received an SMS saying like, hey, you know, we got your information. It's blah, blah, blah from Oracle, just calling up or following up. And I actually followed up with that text message. And we actually followed up. We just texted right to the demo point. We didn't even get on the call at any time. And it was funny because she was like, yeah, make sure not to ghost me, blah, blah, you know, very casual language, but like it resonated with me because I thought it was kind of funny. And especially for a company like Oracle, I didn't expect it. I didn't end up buying their product or anything, but I thought it was cool, the whole sales process, how they utilize SMS in it.
Was it automated? Or was it a real person?
She was actually doing it herself.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, they'll do it a lot. My sales guys do that as well too. They'll just send them a text because it's not illegal to send them a text if you're just sending a true one-on-one text, right? Because now it's becoming conversational. That it's like a transactional. It's because of they asked for something and you're reaching out to them. So,
and I'd rather open a text than pick up a phone call from a mystery number.
I think that's the world of youngins, I guess, or people, millennials changing the world. You could argue that the other way and say people who are older and generally older into their late 30s and their 40s prefer the cell phone to be called through a sales cycle. So I think that's just you noticing the evolution that's changing, and also the salespeople, like the large company like Oracle's already noticed that if you don't text message, you may not reach people like a Tyler, or you know what I mean, like someone who's out there making decisions who may not want to spend 30 minutes on a perfectly perfectly timed phone call. Instead, they could just text over to die to go through at least that initial, because I'm sure you guys know the sales process, that discovery call that they call first to make sure that they can understand what you're doing and all that stuff. And then they go to a demo call, right? So if you can do the discovery through text message, then you can go right to demo. You're eliminating and shortening the sales cycle. So there's a lot of ways to think about that as well too.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
That's really cool.
One thing I wanted to touch on, man, was venture capitalism. So I remember, we talked during that time, you were saying you're looking for just basically money to back Stanley and stuff like that. How was that experience? What'd you learn from it? And is it something you've been happy with?
Yeah. So the experience took about 4 months to get through, which was us going out, meeting a ton of venture capitalists, emailing a ton of people. I think I ran through about 400 meetings, either in person or on the phone over that time. And then eventually at the end, we ended up with 3 term sheets, which means like these are like legitimate offers on the table. And then we had to make some decisions behind it. Ultimately, I think it's been really interesting because 2 things really come out of it. Number one, the part that I really loved about it, and it's the part that was actually the most bitter part of it, is they'll rip you apart. Like they will rip your business apart, but it's in a good way because they're questioning you and challenging you through skepticism and making sure that they understand your business and understand that you're knowledgeable, not that you're fixing it, but knowing that you're aware of it. Right. So that was the first thing that really came into play. And that comes from like that initial story, the pitch, the data points, all that stuff that they want to get. And then the second part that I think I really loved about it is it allowed me to start less penny pinching. Right. So before we're bootstrapped, so we had to look at every penny and every dollar we're spending and being like, all right, is that dollar going to be 100% effective? And now I can be like, okay, I'm not 100% sure this is going to be an effective dollar, but I'm 90 or 80% certain that it will be. And I can go out there and make that mistake if I need to. But usually it's educated at some level so that it isn't bad, right? So there's that weird place that comes into place. The second part is we were able to hire the people that we needed to build for the future. So the biggest thing about venture capital is why you take it is not because you just need money to run your business. It's so you can structure yourself, so you can set yourself up for that future of whatever it is to throw into it, right? So think about if you bought pants that are too big and you wanted to eat a lot to get into that pants, right? Like you're early thinking about that as well too. So I can't say it was a bad thing for us. I think it was a really fun experience, and it's not the last experience we'll have raising capital right now because we're going down that path. But each and every time we do it, I think that we become better and better as people, and especially myself when I'm out there talking to people and pitching people, which is where like it actually improved me as a person, being able to talk in the business acclimate, being able to communicate with customers, being able to communicate with investors, and being able to learn a lot more about how to talk better too as well, and be able to talk across, because you're not dealing with other entrepreneurs when you're dealing with the VC. They're generally not entrepreneurs. Only like 10% of them are entrepreneurs. Most of them are just people who came out with a business degree from Harvard or Princeton or Yale or wherever, and came out with this strong degree, and now they're slinging money, and it's not their own money. They have a fund, right? They raise money just like we do to raise money to deploy out to companies, and then it all comes back upstream and they take their cut in between both times, right? So that's what venture capitalists does, right? It's not like their own money a lot of times. The guys that we ended up raising from were actually their own money, which was really fun. They have they back their own companies with their own entrepreneurial success as well too. And so that was really interesting for us. But yeah, I've been very happy with our current investors, and I'm looking forward to our future ones as well too.
Definitely chalk me up for that future, man.
Yeah, we should definitely talk.
With that money, have you seen like a faster growth in your company? I'm assuming yes, but
Yes and no. I think 2 things came into play here. So yes, we saw growth in the company, but B, the bigger thing about it is not growth in the actual physical revenue, but growth in the processes, the procedures, maturity of the company, that we can start doing things. So if I look back before VC raising, I was involved in every decision. I was involved in everything that happened because we're a smaller team. We're like 12, 13 people. And we were basically like, trying to get through a lot of things. But as we were able to hire more people, it offloaded me. It got more people who are better than me in a lot of things. And that's what I want anyways. And they were able to come in and take that decision-making off me and different leadership points and different people in the company. So I think the maturity of the team is there, which is more important than just the revenue alone. We are set up for the revenue when we're ready to attack that revenue. That's how I look at it.
Smart. That's cool.
What would you tell an entrepreneur who's considering going after the venture capitalist route? Like, what would you recommend as far as like whether they should, 1, do it or not, and then 2, how to approach it?
I think the first decision is very simple. Are you ready to have basically someone to answer to? An entrepreneur doesn't have technically someone, maybe a partner, but this becomes a very different answer to type scenario. And when you go down that path, you are on a path of two things. There's one, you are accountable, but two, you're on a path of time, right? You can't sit here and take venture capital and say, I'm going to build this company for 20 years. That rarely happens, unfortunately. Usually you're doing one of two things. You're either selling, getting acquired, or you're the one selling and acquiring, or you go IPO, right? So there's actually three things that come into place there. But most naturally, the easiest route is always going to be getting acquired. And so you have to understand that your path of time is a bit limited when you go into that route. So you have to also know that. And then, of course, the bigger thing is that control piece. When you have a boss or you have a board to answer to, regardless if you're the chairman of the board or not, you still have people now who have answering to. And those people are going to ask for stuff. They're going to demand things. They're going to want things. So knowing all that is really important. And then the second part is, man, if you're ready to go out there and raise money, you got to really analyze your business and see if it's truly ready for venture capitalist money, because you're going to get beat up, like I kind of talked about. And the weaker you are as a person, and the weaker you are mentally, and also weaker you are as far as like knowing your own business really intimately and deeper, not just knowing like, oh, how much do I make and how much does it cost, but really like they're going to ask you things like, at least in my business is SaaS. So they're going to be like, what's your ARPU, which is your average revenue per customer? What's your CAC, your customer acquisition cost? LTVs, they're going to want to know your churn rates. They're going to want to know all these little different things. What's your org chart? How's that organization split? What's the processes? They want so much information. So if you're not ready for that, you could feel embarrassed, but that's a key. You shouldn't be embarrassed, but you're going to feel that because that's how you're supposed to feel. And that's what they want you to feel. And then third is that valuation. Like, what are they going to value your company at? And are you really happy with that? Knowing that that number is arbitrary, because it doesn't matter what the company's valued at today. It's what it's valued at when it does something, right? So there's that weird like place and stigma that comes into place. So I think there's a lot to it. I mean, I did both sides of it. If I look back, I probably am happy with the procedures. I probably would have started earlier on SendLane, but that's about it. But I'm happy with being a person who's venture backed and knowing that there's money behind you. And that's always a nice feeling that regardless if you have your own money, you'll never have the substantial number of money that you need to truly grow a business in a lot of cases.
Well, especially I'd say like the industry you're in, obviously the value of VSPs are astronomical. What Salesforce buy ExactTarget for? 3.5 billion or something?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty typical in SaaS company because it's like, it depends, right? It can go anywhere as low as 3 to 5, all the way up to about 10 to 12x. It just depends on what stage you are and where you sit. So it all depends on revenue and product market fit and customers and all that stuff. But yeah, there's a pretty wide spectrum in that. And the reason is because recurring money doesn't disappear overnight. There's a parachute.
That's right. Totally. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Dude, I bet you're meeting 1 and meeting 400 were two completely different meetings from your end.
The same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's my first level of meeting was very different from my last level of meeting, and it's just a difference in confidence that comes into play.
That makes sense. What's your vision for SendLane? Like, where do you see the business being in 5 years?
Sure. We're continuing to grow.
Never see yourself ever leaving from it too.
Yeah, I think, I'll be honest. I think what the thing is, it's my identity right now. That's who I am, right? So everyone knows me like that. So that's the hardest part is the founder side. But overall, as a vision, the goal is let's grow it and see what happens. I mean, if an acquisition offer comes out that I can't refuse, obviously I'm going to take it. But I don't know what happens. Maybe we become the acquisition. Maybe we go IPO, but I don't have a perfect answer for that. My vision is let's get through our product vision roadmap and like really deliver what we believe is the next world of what email is. And that's what we're kind of working towards. And that's why we released this new platform this year. It was supposed to be our baseline to get to our next thing. And then Q1 of next year, we start building on our machine learning and auto optimizing side of things, where we're really getting deeper about like, how do we take all those data points and make the decisions for the e-commerce company? And that's what we're kind of really focusing on right now.
That's awesome.
Cool.
What would your advice be for an e-commerce company searching for an ESP that's a good fit for them? Because like you said, there's different versions from the MailChimps to the ExactTargets or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's very important just to know where your business size says. So there's 3 different categories: is low, medium, high. Low is where you're like the entry point. You just started your business last week or a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago. You have less than probably $500,000 of annual revenue. You should stay in something that's really simple and cheap, because you don't need these dynamics, because you're not going to maximize much out of the LTV. Once you've evolved that from about 50 million to about, 500,000 to about 50 million, you're looking at a company like a mid-grade one, which is someone like us or Klaviyo or Drip or ActiveCampaign type steps at that. And then once you're over that like $50 to $100 million mark annually, then you need to be looking up market into the bigger platforms, because you don't need them because of this feature to feature right now. You need them for functionality build out. You need to be able to customize that experience better because your business runs better, and every little dollar matters even more when you get bigger, right? I know that sounds rhetorical, but it actually makes a lot more sense, because at that, it takes a lot more revenue to grow $100 million to $110 million than it takes you to grow 10% from $1 million to $1.1 million, right?
Totally.
So every dollar actually counts way more when you're looking at the bigger picture of things. So that's been really interesting. But yeah, when you're looking at that, that's number one. Two, do you love it? Like, meaning you got to like what you're seeing inside and how to use it, right? As a user. So the user experience is really important. Three, the thing that we always win on is support. I think that that's something that most ESPs and companies don't do very well. They don't support their customers very well. And I think that's an important thing. Is it important to you? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. If it is, then you need to make sure that you're testing different things. And then, you know, for its features and functionality, deliverability. I mean, that's deliverability for an e-commerce company, pretty good across the board out there. I think it's really like, are the features that you need, that you believe that you need for your business for today and for the next 12 months there. I mean, you shouldn't be changing more than once a year, maybe once every 2 years anyway. So you should be evaluating a bunch of companies, and anyone like even ourselves, Klaviyo, you get on there, you get on the demo, you can talk to them, ask all the data points, things that you need in your business, your integrations as well too, and making sure that's all there for you before you go out and jump in. So there's a lot of things that you got to be evaluating, but ultimately you need to do it also in a quicker way, because you shouldn't be focusing too much energy and time in theirs, because the real answer is like, there isn't that much difference between a lot of the companies, which is where we're personally trying to build our differentiator, they call it, into next 2020, so that it no longer just becomes about price, support, deliverability, and features, but really like what other features can you do, or what's your X factor, right? And so we always try to figure out what our X factor is, and that's what we're working towards right now. That's
awesome. Dude, when you started SendLane, how many people were working there?
God, when we started to, all right, so we'll go back. All right. So in 2015, when we first decided SendLane was a business, before it wasn't even called SendLane, but when it became a business in 2015, we had 3 people in the company, and then we had 3 people plus, you know, myself and Zach, and then and that was like our support and our project and social. They did a little bit of everything, and then we had a small development team of about 5 people offshore initially, and that was it. And then through 2016, we didn't grow that much. We're like 9, and then it wasn't big until like now we're sitting about a little over 40. I think we're at like 44 now. So we're moving really fast. And in the last like 6 months, we hired probably about 20 of them. So half the team in the last 6 months. So, you know, a lot of this stuff has been growing faster and faster on our side. And then the bigger thing that you'll learn is when your business gets bigger, you'll attract more talent. And that's the bigger thing, like attracting like true talent of people who've worked for very large companies. Like my VP of sales worked for, you know, what's that called? It worked for a large ESP that I acquired, for example, or, you know, like my VP of engineering has gone through 4 exits, including 3 of them in email. You know what I mean? Like, so when you go through those, that experience is worth bar none, and you can't attract those people unless they believe in your company, and they won't believe in your company until you get some revenue and traction behind you.
Interesting. Where are you guys based out of?
San Diego.
Oh, nice.
Almost all of us are in San Diego, except for we've got about 4 people that are remotely dislocated based on like, they don't need to be here, right? Like a content writer doesn't need to be here all the time, nor does like a system administrator need to be here. So we have those remotely, but everyone else is in office.
Jimmy actually has a really cool office with hoverboards. If anyone ever goes, you'll have a lot of fun.
You haven't even seen our new one.
I want to check
Tyler.
it out.
Tyler, we have a new office. So when you saw our office, that was what? I don't know. Was that March? Something like that?
This year.
February, March. It was this year when you came by. We went from that office, which was about 5,200 square feet. Now we're in this new 2-story office, 13,500 square feet. And so we just moved into that new office just a couple months ago, but that's where like this media room, for example, was built into so we could have it. But we have a 2-level office now of like huge office now. So
damn, that's awesome. Same building?
Exciting. Same building, same building. Just we moved across, and a company was downsizing. We were upsizing, so
perfect.
Yeah.
Do you have a spare office for Tyler and I? We are looking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ready to go.
Yeah, we have a little massage room for Tyler, so that he can take a massage and relax the whole time. That's what he likes.
So tense.
Yeah, it's so tense. Always need a massage.
He's probably sitting on a massage board right now.
So Gabe is actually telling the truth. I'm literally sitting in a massage bed right now.
Oh. Are you about to get a massage or?
No. I just bought one for my office, and I got a stand-up desk, and my office chair is still in Florida. So I was like, shit, I should just sit on this. And I've been sitting on it ever since. for whatever reason, which sounds kind of hilarious when I say it out loud. But I'm literally sitting on this massage bed. So Gabe totally called me out.
You must have great posture, because there's no way I could sit on something with no back.
Perfectly, yeah.
Yeah. I'd be hunched over and dying by the end of it.
Yeah.
It works out well.
Yeah, that's funny. Man, you're a bit of you're used to be, or you are a bit of a car guy, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Big car guy, man. I used to be into cars. I've had my fair share of fun cars. I've souped up some really cool cars in the past. So yeah, I've done it. Yeah. Now I'm like the anti-car guy because I've got 2 Teslas now. So I guess I'm the anti-car guy. But
what happened to your Range Rover?
It had problems. It always had problems. Little weird,
like brand new.
Problems. Yeah, it was brand new, and I just got so fed up of them. Not to mention gas. I don't know how much it is out where you guys are, but gas is like $4.50 a gallon out here, and it was just kicking my ass. And,
my friend.
Yeah, bro. California, we pay for sunshine and gas. So
listen, that shit is cheap. Come to Vancouver, man. I pay like $1.60 a liter, and I drive
right?
it.
So that's like 4 times. So yeah, that's like 4, 5, 6. Yeah, okay, yeah, it's like 6.
Yeah, and I drive a twin turbo V8. So like we're yeah, but you had a really nice R8.
Yeah.
Somewhat internet famous. I definitely saw it before I knew it was your car.
Yeah, the R8 was famous because it had a lot of prototype parts on it, because I got teamed up with a local. I always used to do this, is like a local motorsports company that's pretty famous in like higher end cars, and I got a lot of prototype stuff on my car, which made it really famous because it got photoshot a lot.
What's the company name?
Tag Motorsports.
Yeah, I know Tag. Yeah. I'm big into the car scene.
Yeah. So Tag used to prototype my car, so I had prototype products on the car that weren't even out in the public. So it was pretty cool to have that, which made the car kind of famous because HRE, for example, I had the first HRE wheels that were on my car, were the first production set ever to come out. Nice. And then I was requested to be at like 90 HRE shows for like the next like year as part of the deal, why I got a deal. So it was kind of like that fun thing, right? You get the deal, you get to show it off, and people have things. So yeah, I was definitely the cars, man. I did all of it, man. I went through like the Rice Boy Factors life where, you know, I did the whole like souped up DSM, which is like the Eagle Talons back in the twin turbo all-wheel drive. Oh yeah, dude, I had a 2.0 that was bored out to 2.4 with the T67 and all the fancy stuff behind. This was back then with Motec and like did all the crazy stuff back in the day, and then did the SCI route and did all that fun, and then got into American cars and the Corvettes and all that stuff. And eventually my last fun car was my Lamborghini that I had, which was short-lived because I eventually got my wife pregnant, and that was time to leave and part ways from that car, which is also why I drive a Tesla now, is because I got to haul my kids around. I got to do it safely. I said, you know what? It's just easier just to drive a car. It's just not.
God, we're growing up. This is terrible.
I know. We're just getting old. I was just thinking about that. I think that I've realized now finally what a midlife crisis is, and it's starting to hit me. I'm like, you really are getting old when you start talking to 21-year-olds and you have no idea what they're talking about. And you're just out of tune with a lot of the things that they think is cool nowadays, like mumble rap, which I can't get on no matter what.
Dude.
So.
I mean, I'm down with a few mumble rap songs, but like, I get you. Sometimes you're just like, how
they don't make any story. They just mumble about stuff. That's the problem with it. Not because I don't have a problem with the fact that they're mumbling. I have a problem that they don't share a story, a ballad. Like that's what music used to be.
Yeah. That's when you know you're old. It's just like
ranting about old music, listen to 90s. You know you're old.
Yeah.
I can't wait till they're considered oldies.
Do you think you'll ever get back into the car scene, or you think you're just you're tapped?
I think when my kids get a little bit older, and maybe like my youngest one is a boy, and maybe if he gets interested, maybe. But my question is, will there be gas and electric gas cars even out in the future? That's my question. I don't know. I don't know what happens when the world starts changing right now. I think next 5 years in the car world is going to be very different, and I don't know what happens there. So
I think there'll always be like a spot for hybrids moving forward. You know, like I think like the LaFerrari, how they're mixing it up, and then like the P1 and everything. I think that there'll always be that combination for a bit anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
They're going to be classic cars eventually, and the new cars will be these crazy Tesla Roadster models that's going to blow everything away.
Yeah, that thing's crazy, man. That thing looks cool.
Yeah, it looks cool. It's going to compete against any of those cars all day long on the track. I mean, what more could you want? You know, I know the sound, right? That's literally the one thing I miss in my car is sound of the car and the engine and the shifting and feeling like that. I mean, you can't even buy a manual car anymore. I mean, think about that. I mean, there's only like a handful of, I know they're faster. I know all this stuff, but really there's nothing like driving a manual car. There's something
you can feel that at such a different level.
Yeah, it's such a different feeling as a car. So yeah, man, like cars have always been a passion. I think I've gotten away, but one day, hopefully when I can have it, it's not anything about money. It's just people, like my kids, right? Once I can feel like I can get in those things and drive them around, then yeah, I want to do something. I almost I almost buy project cars 50% of the time too. I look at them, go down the rabbit hole, start getting excited about it, and then going, what am I doing with myself? I can't do this right now. I don't have any time to begin with, but also no space to do it either. So
I feel you. I'm on the same page, man. Every day.
By the way, I want to put out there, if reincarnation is a real thing, I either want to come back as Joel Terrian's son or your child. Because the breakfast Jimmy makes his kids are unreal. Literally, they'll be like a child with 7 pancakes.
Oh, yeah.
And he'll eat like maybe half a pancake. I'm like, man, this is amazing. How come you make so much food? But I would want to be that child.
Well, no, I mean, we make it for everybody, but it's like that joke, like if I put it all on one plate and give it to her, see what she'll eat. But yeah, it's something that we've started doing like every weekend. So every weekend I just make her something different so that she kind of opens her mind. That's like our time together, I guess, per se.
Gotcha. Dude, it's so funny. I think I comment every single time you post that shit.
Because they're just really excessive.
Yeah. And it's straight hilarious.
Yeah, that's what she expects now, though. That's what she thinks is food now, which is the funnier part. So it's also a problem.
Oh, that's so funny.
Damn.
Well, we're getting to that time, guys. I think we've wrapped it up. I think we've covered everything here. So
we've definitely gone pretty far, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I really think a lot of people get a lot of value out of talking about those automations as well as talking about the VC stuff, man. I think that's super interesting.
Not something we talked about
before. Definitely a different world. What's up?
Yeah. Not something we've talked about before either.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs, I mean, what do they say? 1% of entrepreneurs ever get funded or VC backed or whatever. So it's very, very small world that happens. But once you get in that world, it's a whole different world too as well, and opens a lot of doors as well. So it's I guess it would be a milestone that I hit in my life because I always said I wanted to be VC backed at one time. So it was a milestone for me to hit that and achieve that goal. But now it's that next milestone, which is like a big exit, like not like small exits that I've done in the past where I'm making a couple million, but like I want like a big exit behind and under my belt just to say I did it. And then I'll probably go back and build a lifestyle business so I don't ever have to deal with the startup ever again. So that's amazing.
What if you were to like imagine the value you want to sell for one day, what's that number?
You know, I don't have a number there. I thought I knew that number a long time ago, and I used to say $100 million, but I feel like the number keeps moving and changing all the time on me. Some days I'm upset and just don't want to deal with it anymore. And I'm like, if someone just gave me $10 million, I'd get rid of it. You know what I mean? And it's not really true, but it's just me saying it. But I think that sometimes I'll come up with an idea, start hitting traction on it, and then we'll be like, oh man, we're going to sell for $1 billion or whatever. So I don't have a number, man. I think the number is arbitrary to the stage that you're at and also where you're feeling as a personal person. And of course, now with my board, also how they're feeling. So if it's 5 years from now and we hadn't grown enough and an offer comes in, my investors may push and say, hey, like, you need to get our money out. So you need to either take debt on or sell this company. And that does happen all the time, which is why companies exit sooner than they should, because it takes long to build a company. So that's also one of those weird factors that come into play when you take VC monies, because you're accelerating your life as far as your business is concerned.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Damn, dude. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely appreciate the time. Obviously, your studio is far nicer than my massage bed.
And better than your internet too.
This is a budget podcast. We're still bootstrapping right now, Jimmy. Thank you. We are looking for investors though. If you're interested, that's a total
podcast.
It produces zero revenue, but all the laughs.
All the laughs.
You know, it's not about the revenue. It's about the branding. Content can't be measured just like social media. You know, you don't know what you're actually driving down the road, but this may all drive to one pinnacle in your lives one day when you guys run into that one perfect person that's like, hey, I know you from there. And then all of a sudden it becomes a big thing, right? So it's the same thing we think about our podcast is like, we just spray information into the world through like multiple channels of content. And then hopefully it attracts people. And believe it or not, we've run into people all the time at trade shows that are like, oh, dude, we love your Instagram, or oh, dude, we love your blog, or something like that. And we're like, who are you? And they're like, oh, I'm not a customer. I just like to follow you. And I'm like, cool. So next time you do want to be a customer, you'll probably look us up, right? So like that's exactly what you're looking for with this side. So content and social are no means of ROI. It's a long game play, but the reality is when it comes to fruition, you'll never know till it happens. That's the weird part of how that works into place.
Yeah. We get lots of people coming up to us too, and we're just like, oh, yeah, you listen, man. Like, yeah,
cool, right?
Yeah, really cool. Well,
it's a lot of fun too, man. It's here, like, even our video guy, he went from being our video guy to like probably making more money last month than he's ever made in his life.
It's beautiful.
So it's been pretty cool, man. Just see the effect it's had on people's lives.
Yeah. That's why we do things when we do, right? That's the main reason why we're entrepreneurs, is because we want to see something different. It's not just about money. We're not small business owners, right? That's the thing that you have to know the difference of. So,
well, thanks again, man, for being on. I'm excited to see you in Vegas once again this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love me the Vegas show. I think I like it better than New York. I'm just going to say that now publicly.
Yeah. I don't even go to the New York show. I don't even get anything out of it. It's too dislocated, like disconnected out there. But when you go to that Vegas show, everyone wants to go to Vegas anyway. So
just hang out at the Chandelier Bar. You'll meet everyone you need to meet.
That and people in Vegas aren't mean. I feel like New Yorkers are mean. So that's another thing.
I mean, you're probably not wrong.
Yeah.
Not
mean. They're just more direct and to the point, and they don't like the bullshit or fluff anything, I guess, per se. But where we like to have fun and fluff and talk and create connections, meaningful connections. They're all about the business. I guess that's what it is.
I love me the fluff. Love me the fluff.
All right, fun, man.
Yeah. All right. Thanks to everyone to listening today. For everyone watching, please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube. And for everyone listening, please give us 5-star review on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher, whatever you listen to. Give us that 5 stars because we deserve it. At least we think we do. So thanks for listening, guys. And we'll see you on the next one.